Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to the 200th song review on Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I am just so excited to bring you the 200th review. We haven't hit quite 1 year with the show being live since I reviewed the first song, Gypsy. But we are at episode or song review number 200. Pretty amazing in 1 year's time. On my other podcast, I'm hitting, what am I on, year 3, I think? And I've only done 190 some episodes of that one. And here we are at 200 in just under a year. Pretty amazing. And not only that, but we've got a double dose of today's song. That is pretty cool. Cross that line. We got 2 versions of it, and we are going to get to that. But first, thinking about the people that have helped make this show happen, that have helped me get to 200 song reviews, I got to talk about my patrons because they are great people. At the $5 Easy Living tier, we're talking about Kenny Wymore and Brad D. At the $3 The Wizard tier, we're mentioning Peter Voss, Goran Eriksson, Frank Thielgaard Mortensen, and William Rose. And you know what? There's something else. Not only is Goran Eriksson a $3 tier The Wizard guy, he is also the winner of this month's contest. So Goran, if you have not heard from me, please reach out, but you should have an email waiting for you. Check your junk mail because it may have ended up there, even though it's not really junk. Anyway, well done. We'll get in touch. And of course, at the $1 Traveler in Time tier, the lockdown solid for all eternity, Airtight Gravesite. Thank you all very much for everything that you do to help keep the show running. It's not just the money. I mean, that helps, but it's also that it just makes me feel good that I've created something that means that much to people that they're willing to help make it continue. Usually it's, put your clothes back on and get in the house. So it's really nice to have some extra support there. And, the company BMG, that is Uriah Heep's record company, they have just come up with some amazing box sets. They've got the Choices box set as well as the Everyday Rocks box set. And if you guys are interested in those and haven't gotten yours, grab it because I don't know how many are left. I would imagine not many if they're still available. So make sure that you reach out. You can go to uriah-heep.com. That wonderful site that the social media director of all of Uriah Heep stuff, Dave White, has put together. He's got the links there, and you can purchase directly from that link. And so those are great things to check out. Also, let's get Uriah Heep into the Ohio Rock and Roll Hall of Fame next year. It's got to happen. It's ridiculous that it hasn't happened already. And you can go to facebook.com/HeepRockHall. And you can get the link to sign the petition. It costs you nothing but a minute of your life. If you're listening to the show, obviously you love the band or are interested in them enough to check the show out. So please take a minute, go there, and vote for getting them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they deserve to be there. When you think of just what they've done with songs like Easy Living and Lady in Black, I mean, even the original, some of the earlier hits, they belong in there just for that. Let alone everything else they've done. I mean, they're just finishing up their 25th album. They've done a ton of stuff, touring for 50 plus years. Definitely deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. So take a minute and do that. Now, a couple quick other people I want to thank. Of course, my buddy Scott Lazinski, who did the graphic artwork for the show. My friends at Audionamics. I will not do a podcast without Instant Dialogue Cleaner. It is the greatest thing in the world for podcasts, for voice artists, for filmmakers who need to clean up some dialogue. And it also works on other things too. It's not just dialogue, but that is the main focus. And Algorithm, a fantastic product I cannot live without. And of course, all my brothers of the Deep Dive Podcast Network. We have the Deep Purple Podcast, Skinner Reconsidered, T-Bone's Prime Cuts on the Other Side, Sabbath's Bloody Podcast, In the Lap of the Pods, Hawk Binge, Maiden A to Z Pod, Diary of the Madmen, the Ultimate Aussie Podcast, Universally Speaking, the Red Hot Chili Peppers Podcast, the Metal Gods Podcast, and of course, my buddy Brandon over at the Metallicast Podcast, and my friend Allegra over at gottahearemall.com, and Ason Music at Stitcher and YouTube. Check out all of those links and shows. All links should be in the show notes. They're also on the main page of my website under scotthaskin.com. Click on the Uriah Heep podcast link, go down to the bottom of the page, and they are all there just waiting for you to click on them. They're in the show notes, but, you know, as I have seen, the show notes get really fragmented and look different, and some of the links work and sometimes they don't, depending on which app you're listening to. So because they're not all consistent, it's easier to just go to the website. Everything is right there. And all those are just great things to spend your time listening to if you're into those particular bands or want to know about the music business, that kind of thing. Everything is great. Otherwise, I wouldn't put it in there, quite honestly. So that all being said, let's get into today's song. Now, this is a song that has two versions. There is the actual studio release version and the extended version. I checked them both out before I started the show, and here's what I could tell you. The song is exactly the same up to the point where the studio album version fades out and then the extended version goes on a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the main song as I always do, and then I'll play the extended ending of the second version of the song after that. So stay tuned for that at the end of the show. It's pretty cool. I have to say, there is some really good playing on this song. So let's just get right to it. The song is called Cross That Line, and it is by Uriah Heep, or it wouldn't be on this podcast. Unless it was a cover. You know, I feel like this is in the style of the earlier Heep days, but with a more modern sound, you know, a little bit cleaner in the studio, a little bit more refined in the way of the production. But honestly, that just, you know, the layer of guitars you've got, I'm hearing a guitar track in the background that's using a little bit of bends, which sounds really good. You've got the really powerful Hammond organ. The drums sound crisper and cleaner than you would have heard in the original albums. These are, you know, a little bit more modern recording sounding, but they sound really good, nice and bright in the mix. The bass has got a good feel to it. It's just a nice opening, but really just the balance of guitar and organ along with those powerful drums really just kind of feels like the old days of Heep.
What do you say to a talk over dinner? Well, we haven't spoken for a while. This time I won't take no for an answer. You can't hide forever from your only son.
Well, obviously very bass guitar driven. We have a lot of action on the bass here from Trevor. This is the kind of stuff I love hearing him do. He knows when to lay back, but he knows how to bring it when it's time to come forward and drive the thing, and he's doing a great job here. Drums sound nice and strong, really good, solid hits on everything. Very powerful. Even in this sort of, you know, it kind of feels like a ballad in a way, but it's really got that powerful rhythm section just backing Bernie so well. And of course, we've got some piano in there. So it was a real abrupt change from that opening, which seemed like it was going to be heavier. Then everything just kind of drops out and the song changes completely when the vocals come in. I love that because it was such a smooth transition. You know, it didn't feel awkward considering how abrupt and different it is. It was just very well done. And of course, as always, what a strong vocal from Bernie.
Let's take a seat right here by the window. I remember how you lied with you. Now look me in the eye, the truth I wanna hear. The time is right.
It could be my imagination. That is very vivid, but I hear a guitar hitting chords along with the piano during the verse there. I can't tell if it's electric or acoustic. It sounds like it could be acoustic, but I'm not positive. But I'm also then hearing, the fill-ins from Mick coming in. Really nice verse. And I really love the transition into this bridge, into the chorus. It just, they're masters of that. It just flows so nicely. The level of power building that we're hearing in the vocals is right on par with the music. It's very well performed. That's really nice, the way that the band stops, but Lee keeps it going, just playing a couple of notes on the hi-hat there, bringing it back into the next part with a drum fill. But it's, instead of it just stopping and everybody just kind of stopping along with it, you're kind of moving along with the song. You still hear it playing because it doesn't actually stop, even though everyone else drops out. Very nice technique. I just love the layers of the backing vocals through that point. They don't stop, but they keep just kind of coming, not from different angles. They could have panned that and made it sound like it was coming from different angles. That might have been cool, but I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad it just sounds like it's everywhere, like it's all around you, and very, very powerful. Lovely solo from Mick. You'll notice how he kept in with the song, the way he stopped at those little, quick stops that were in the middle of it, and just kept back on with his solo after that. So, it's in touch with the song, but it's also standing on its own. I wish that solo were a little bit louder. I would have liked to have heard it a little bit better. Same with the vocals on this song, too. I feel like the vocals are just a little bit quiet, which has been kind of an ongoing theme since Bernie started with the band. I think they could put him a little bit more in the mix. But it really sounds great. I feel like Lee is really pushing the border of almost being too flashy for this song, but not quite. Like, he's driving it just a little heavier than the rest of the band is, which is kind of interesting. The fills are pretty aggressive for a song like this, but part of that is just because the toms sound so big in the mix. If the toms were a little bit more buried in the mix or a little bit flatter sounding, it probably wouldn't sound as aggressive, but it's starting to dominate the sound a little bit when he plays. So there's that. But I did like the little bit of cymbal work he was doing during the guitar solo, backing Mick up. I thought those were some nice touches, something I've kind of not heard from him. His style has really changed a lot over the last couple of albums, and it's interesting to see him playing with different things and, going into sort of uncharted territory and not just laying back or saying, this is how I play drums. He's doing it different, and I like that. So well done, all of them. Yeah, I would have to say if Lee wasn't playing as aggressively as he is, this might be considered a ballad, but it really feels almost more like a rocker, even though there's no real heavy guitars in here. We're not hearing like a good bottom end distorted guitar. The keyboards are not also playing very heavy. They're just playing very nicely to fill in the sound and then just kind of peek through a little bit here and there. The bass is a little more rocky though. You know, it's had a pretty good groove through the song. A little more adventurous than we've heard in a while. So it's really, you know, it's like the rhythm section is playing rock and the rest of the band is playing ballad, maybe slightly harder than ballad. But yeah, it's kind of a hard song to call because of that. It's really a combination of both. Lee is just playing his heart out on this song, and I really love that. Just giving it everything that he's got, and it sounds fantastic. Interesting, too, that, you know, when he does a lot of fills like this, he does tend to go to the ride cymbal a little bit more. I know he doesn't go there a whole lot through the span of Heep up to this point, and when he does, it's kind of special. But I've noticed that when he has had a couple songs where he kind of does a lot of intricate drum fills as the song goes towards the end, he does switch to the ride. And the reason for that is part because of the sound, but also because it's easier to jump in and play all different kinds of things. Because if you're playing a hi-hat, your right arm is crossed in front of you, reaching all the way over to your left, past your body. So for you to hit a floor tom, which is going to be on the right side of your right leg, you know, that's a long way to go from crossing in front of you to hitting like a floor tom or a low range tom. But he was pretty much playing a 5-piece kit, I think. So he just has the 2 toms on his bass drum and then the 2 floor toms, or 1 or 2 floor toms. So it's a long way to go. But if you're playing the ride, you're right above the floor tom or really close to it. So you have a lot more versatility in what you can play. And he's hitting those low toms a lot. So it's a lot easier to do that when you're playing on the ride cymbal, which is part of the reason, at least, that we're hearing him do that. Well, we were getting a good rock solo from Mick, but the song faded out. Unfortunately, we don't have to live with that this time because we have an extended version that we're going to get to in a minute. But first, I also want to point out a couple other things about what Lee's playing is. One, he's also riding on the crash cymbals a lot, which gives it a big, you know, swishy sound. And also, he's playing a lot of stuff that, you know, it feels like it's throwing off the timing of the song. His fills are really interestingly placed. And everybody just keeps going. You know, it doesn't feel like the band is thrown off, even though he's really throwing some things at them. So it's a pretty interesting way of playing. It's a lot of fun as a drummer to really just let loose like that and not care what the rest of the band is doing. You can just do your thing as long as you hit those repeat times when you're supposed to. And if you're just given that free range to go at it, then that can be a lot of fun. Kind of reminiscent a little bit of Buddy Rich on this one to me, some of the fills that he played. You know, very, very creative, very powerful. And Lee was a powerful drummer, no doubt about that. So let's check out the extended ending of this song. Now, for those of you who are playing along at home on the home game, you can check out the extended edition of Cross the Line on the deluxe CD. I'm going to start the song at about 4 minutes and 30 seconds. That's where it starts to depart from the studio song. And for those of you who are wondering, what I do is I load both tracks into my DAW, I line them up, and then I look for the differences in the waveform, and that's where I start listening and, you know, kind of see where things change. Gets a little tougher on the songs where, you know, there's like an extended verse, or, maybe they threw in a couple extra measures on one. But on this one, it's nice and simple. It's just an extended ending beyond the fate of the studio song. So let's check that out from minute 4 and 30 seconds. Well, I really would have loved to have heard where that solo was going, because now the song's really starting to pick up, get rocky, and then it fades out. But at least we got to hear a little bit more of it. Lee just on fire. A lot to Trevor's credit, too, because he's playing a lot of great stuff in this song. And the rhythm section is just so tight, even though it's almost like a contest between Trevor and Lee to see which one can throw the other one off with the way that they're playing. But it's so well done. And despite the competition feel to it, it's really cohesive. It really works with the song. Very powerful. It's weird to have a long instrumental section at the end of a song without some element of vocal in it. Uriah Heep doesn't do a lot of that. There's usually at least backing vocals with a lead, kind of riffing or just repeating a chorus or something towards the end. So it's really interesting how long they carried this musically since the vocals stopped. Very rare for them. But very nicely done. I really like this song. I think it's very powerful. It's a great addition to this album. And I'm glad that we got to hear that extended ending. It really was very cool. So that is today's show, guys. Happy Monday. We'll see you tomorrow in the next episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!